Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to our final podcast interview from the Edinburgh International Film Festival. We've been so lucky to meet with some amazing acting talent and behind the scenes names, and I'm excited to share our conversations about movies, the festival and cinema with you. Today's interviews are with the director and stars of England is Mine, the morning after they closed the International Film Festival. Firstly, we'll be joined by writer and director Mark Gill. Then we've got Jack Lowden, who plays the iconic Stephen Morrissey. Then Jessica Brown-Finlay, who portrays Linda Sterling. And then finally, Laurie K on guitar as Johnny Marr. England is Mine is set in the 1970s as Stephen Morrissey finds his ambitions to become a musician developing, but before he went on to become the lead singer of the seminal 1980s band The Smiths. This is Morrissey brimming with youthful arrogance, but still searching to find his place in the musical world and life itself. I hope you'll enjoy our discussion, and thanks again to Mark, Jack, Jessica and Laurie for joining me. Enjoy the show. For yourself, obviously this is your first feature film as a director. What's been the process for you to get into this stage? Obviously you were Oscar nominated for your short movie. What was it about this project you thought this is going to be the first real big movie I want to do?
It's the reason I want to make to go and make films, because I was a musician before this for a long time, a professional musician. I did okay, had a career out of it, made some records and stuff. So. But I think I'd always done photography, and obviously the Smiths were the reason I got into music. Mm-hmm. And when I was thinking the last band I was on tour with, I was making Super 8 films and just to give myself something to do when I was on tour. So when I just fell out of love with being in a band and wanted to do other things. So I went back to film solo on my guitars, went back to film school, and primarily to make this film. So it's been, I think it's 10 years since I graduated. Wow. So it's been quite quick for me, I suppose, in that respect. Some people wait a long time to make their first film. And, I wanted to make shorts first, and because I think it's a really great way to start. But I just always knew I wanted to make this film, and I think for me it's probably sort of like an easy access, because growing up in that area, making a film, going back to where I used to live, I don't live there anymore, but going back. It was also a very personal story, so that was the main reason. And I felt it was a story I could tell, and it was a story that I knew I had a different take on it, rather than just doing a film about the Smiths or a film about Morrissey. I just wanted to do something that might have a chance to have more universal appeal. Mm-hmm.
So how did you kind of get involved in this film in particular, that you're saying this is the film that you wanted to make? Did you have to kind of champion yourself for it, or did they come and find you and looking at all your work and go, this is the guy for the film?
Well, no, the process was to make, to learn. Once I graduated, I think I was working on Doctor Who for a bit behind the scenes on there, and I'd made a lot of short films at uni, and I'd won a Royal Television Society Award, and I'd just been working with other directors, and I just thought, I think I could do that as a job, because I think as a director you need to know and have an interest and passion in a lot of things. And I'd written a short film, this film called The Vorman Problem, and that's how I met my producer. I've been working with him for 10 years now, and we made that film for about 10 grand and shot it all in Manchester. Managed to get two great actors in it, and that's what I learned, that actors respond to really great scripts, and because I write as well. It was basically once that film went out, it started doing really well at festivals, and then it got nominated for a BAFTA, which we thought was amazing. Then it got nominated for an Oscar, and you think, oh my God, we just made this film for ourselves as an actors. And that's what happens when you get that recognition from your peers. People want to know who you are, and the industry in that respect is really generous, because they do try and champion new filmmakers. They are, the advent of TV now, they're desperate to keep hold of the talent in film. They're losing a lot of people.
What I loved most about the movie was that it wasn't sort of the traditional music biopic where it goes, this is how they all came together, then they had the band, and then it's the band, and then you go through the... I really liked how it was like focused on almost like Morrissey Begins, in a way that you get this little period of time before the Smiths officially kick off. And I really like that Was there ever kind of an idea where you thought, I want to do the whole of Morrissey's career, or was it always going to be, I want to do this little period of time?
Yeah, it was that snapshot. I mean, I think it's going against us in some respects, because, I've seen some of the reviews today, and I just don't think people understand what we were trying to make a film, not a music biopic. We were trying to make something, like you just said, that it's a snapshot of time, and I was trying to make a film that, what Morrissey did for a generation of people, myself included, was show that there is a way out. It's that artistic struggle for a lot of people, whether it's a journalist or a filmmaker or a musician, or not anybody who has some ambition to try and do something with their lives. How do you do that? And how do you do that in a world that's trying to tell you to be like everyone else? And Morrissey found his access through music and books and film as well, but also through the strong women who surrounded him. And that became really the focus for our film, not about his vegetarianism, not about his sexuality, because it's so limited to an audience. And I just feel that it had to be a film that works. You can just watch that film and go, I understand that struggle. And thankfully there's been a huge positive response today on the whole, but I think some people are really struggling with the fact that we've not made a traditional biopic, that we've not, because there are no Smith songs in it.
Was there ever something you were thinking about, like, we can maybe put in a couple of the songs or the early songs?
No, I never did. The distributors, I think it's from the marketing of the film, they really wanted to have a Smith song maybe at the end of the film. I was really against it, because I felt, again, it was a bit of a cliche. And I want the film to be judged on its own merits. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit more of a risk. Making a film's a risk. Making a film about Morris is a risk. So,
absolutely, yeah. Especially as a vocal guy.
Yeah, and I'm not risk averse. So I had to make the film I wanted to make and believe that it would connect. And last night it connected in a big way. So
I thought Jack Lowden was incredible as Morrissey. How did you go around finding someone to take on such an iconic role and to make sure that you've got an actor there that's not doing some sort of parody of Morrissey that some might do?
Yeah.
He's given a really good performance. What was the process like of casting?
It took about 6 months to find Jack. We were going through a process of putting an open call out with all the casting agents. My casting director Shaheen was playing, she's got to give her a massive amount of credit for finding Jack and making me see him and getting him in the room, because he did a really bizarre audition tape. It was just nuts. But what I liked about it is that everybody else, well, practically everybody else, did some weird impression of Morrissey, which just I was not looking for that. I was just looking for somebody who could understand, look at the page and go, oh, that's a person struggling. Yeah. And Jack did that in a very strange way. But what I liked about him when I met him was his intelligence and his bravery, because he knew that this is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And so once I cast Jack, I did a screen test, and that's when I knew. And he looks nothing like Morrissey at all. But I don't think that matters. We're not doing stars in your eyes. What we're doing is trying to make someone believe that is Stephen, not Morrissey. And so I worked with him for about a year before we shot. He came to Manchester a couple of times, took him around all the places, let him immerse himself, give him a chance to discover the music. He knew who Morrissey was. I wasn't really a fan of the stuff. Now he's a huge fan, obviously. And just discussing, we talked a lot just about the guy on the page and how do you make that person a human being, because you know what he's going to become. And we're not making a film about the Morrissey of today. People are getting a bit confused about that, and no one knows what he's really like back then. His mum probably knew what he was really like.
So you're saying, obviously it's hard to know what he was like back then. How do you go around kind of researching that and then writing for a period of time where it's maybe not as much as known as the kind of modern Morrissey?
Well, the songs were really good. They're the first access point. Those early songs, debut album, Hatful of Hollow. The interviews he did at the time, he gave loads of interviews, talked about his upbringing, his family life. I made a lot of interviews. And I had a lot of help from Billy Duffy. A lot of help from the family of Angie Hardy. I grew up in that area, so I did my own research, and also, fictionalising certain elements of it. Once you develop the character and you start to see, well, I believe this, he may have been close to this. It's about think of the character as a circle, and as long as we land within it somewhere and see how he responds, and just try not to do anything too wildly out of context. So the scene where he jumps in the lift. Yeah. Whether he'd have done that, I don't know, but we had to make him a human being. So, but those were the access points, the music.
And then what's going to be next for England Is Mine? Obviously, it's now just had its world premiere. Is it going to be something that you're going to be pitching off to America, or?
Yeah, it's sold everywhere already. It's sold across North America, Canada, South America, Latin America. Sold. Australia's sold. Germany, France. It's all gone. So it's getting sold now. So
what do you think it is about kind of your story and Morrissey that's made it such a popular sell around the world? Because people often struggle to kind of put around the world, and here you are, your first feature film, and it's.
Well, I suppose I didn't know that the film does come with a built-in global audience. I'm very aware of that. My ambition was to try and let's see if we can make a film that goes beyond the core audience, and I think also that's what is huge in South America, isn't it? You know, the Mexican community in LA and Mexico itself, they're obsessed with it because there's something about that struggle, being an outsider, which connects with a lot of people. You know what I mean? For me, mostly my love affair is with the Smiths. I'm not really paid. Over the years, my interest in solo careers diminished, but the Smiths have stayed with me, and because it happened. And I think that's happened with a lot of people have stayed with him. Well, I think maybe a lot of people discovered him first as Morrissey, then realised the Smiths existed. But I think that's, I'm very fortunate that we do have that audience, and there's an appetite to see it.
Does it come with a pressure with that having such a global audience that everyone's going to be putting their eyes, as you were saying, some people maybe haven't got it, some people do.
Yeah, and everyone has an opinion on him, and everyone has a film in their head about him that they want to see, but I can't. I have to make the film that I want to see. Yeah. So, and it may not be to people's tastes, but I can't really. I know that the majority of people will connect with it.
Absolutely, yeah. The reaction last night, it seemed like you're just watching it because it was in the sort of same section as obviously the cast and crew, and you're just watching it, and every joke seemed to land, every little moment and beat, and it was just I kind of go into trying films, try and ignore what I think are trailers, and I just thought I'm going to go into this blank. And I was starting to wonder it would be a traditional one, and it was just that idea of the snapshot of time. I loved it. It reminded me almost of the movie Submarine in a way. Just these young couple just kind of going through life in England or Wales, whatever, and just that was brilliant.
Yeah, that was a great film. We talked about Submarine a bit, me and Will, when we were writing it. We just thought that tonally that was, again, the type of film that you could see as a reference point. I think Richard Ayoade did a brilliant job of that, and I liked the double as well.
Yeah. So then finally, what's next for yourself now that England Is Mine is kind of coming out? Have you got your eye on another project? Are you writing something?
Yeah, we've already got a development deal in place. It's been the complete opposite of trying to get money together for this, which is like that little £1 million film. And the next one, I optioned a book by a writer called James Smythe called The Testimony. And so we've adapted it. The film's going to be called The Broadcast. It's very different again, but I have a big interest in science fiction.
Oh, excellent.
And also, if you've seen The Volman Problem, I have quite an interest in religion as a mental illness. so I'm already writing the next one.
Yeah. What kind of sci-fi is it you're into?
I make films because of Blade Runner. Yeah. So this year's a bit of a weird year because I'm probably like Morrissey fans. Yeah. I'm like this going, I hope it's good. I
know. I've watched the first teaser trailer. I've ignored the second one. I just want to go in and blind.
Yeah, I know it's tough, isn't it? Because that. Yeah. So I think sci-fi that has it's intelligent sci-fi that has. Big themes, ideas that play with it. So yeah, the broadcast is very much like that.
Excellent. I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you so much for talking to us today. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
thank you. So how was last night?
It's great, man. It's great fun.
Must have been a surreal experience because you've opened the festival before, wasn't it? Was it Tommy's on?
Oh yeah, I opened it and I've closed it, so it's great.
There you go. That's something for your IMDb trivia in a few years' time.
I just like being here. It's pretty much where I grew up, so it's nice to be back and it's nice to bring something that I've done as well.
Yeah, because you've got quite a lot of experience. Kind of here, you've obviously did the Black Watch. Did you do it during the Fringe run a few?
No, I didn't. So the Black Watch I did was in 2010.
Okay.
So it was the sort of second incarnation of it. Then we went around the States and things like that.
And how was that kind of responded to in America? This play about
amazing.
The Scot?
It was easily. It was my favourite job I've done. Still is. It was the first job I did. And it's still my favourite, and it was amazing. It was 10 guys, 10 Scottish actors, aged between 19 and 30, touring the world. It was great.
Must have been a surreal experience. And I don't know how that would have gone down. All these Scots together in a cramped space touring America. I think that's a film in itself.
It is. No, it is. I wish there'd been a documentary crew following it. No, it was great. It was 9 months as well. We were together.
And then obviously last night was England Is Mine. How did you end up playing like Morrissey, you know, Scottish guy playing an English icon? How did that come around?
I mean, it was just an audition. It just came the way through my agent, and I just auditioned for it. Put myself on tape, met the director.
Because you had some interesting words to say about your audition. You described it as, I think it was like crazy.
Really?
Yeah. So I was, you know, I didn't ask too much about that, but I thought I'd ask you, what was it about it that was so crazy? Your audition?
I don't know. It wasn't crazy for me. I mean, it was just like a normal audition. I don't know what was crazy about it, but no. I mean, you know, being Scottish, I have to do a lot of accents. But you very rarely get asked to be Scottish. You know, which is why we need to make more films up here. But so I'm used to it. I'm used to having to do, you know, an English accent, but his accent isn't an English accent. It's a concoction of everything. Yeah. It's a very distinctive way of speaking.
I loved it. Like, if I hadn't met you beforehand, I would not have known you were like a Scottish guy. And
I know,
stuff.
it's mad. I stood outside after the film last night with a couple of mates, and a guy came over and started talking to us about the film. Mm-hmm. He had no idea that I was in it. Yeah. He just started talking to me about what I thought of the film, things like that. So no, it's quite good.
And how do you go around kind of researching and preparing to take on Morrissey? Because I thought what was so great about your performance is it's not like a parody. It's so easy to do, kind of the Morrissey, you know, oh, I'm so depressed. Like, how did you kind of thread that needle? What was your kind of process?
The script, really, the script, man. I mean, we just looked at the guy on the page. It was who then ends up becoming Morrissey, the Morrissey that we all know now. Yeah. So I just took it all from the script, and you know, it's more about a hesitant young man who's trying to find his way and has an idea of himself but doesn't have the confidence to put it into practice yet. So it was completely relatable, you know. I just, you know, everybody's been through that kind of stage when they're in their late teens, where you don't know who you are.
Exactly. That's what I really liked about the movie, was that it was like a snapshot of time, because I tried to go into to Totally Blind, and I thought, I wonder if it's been one of those sprawling biopics. We'll see you as a 50-year-old Morrissey, you know. Yeah. I liked how it was that snapshot of time, and I think that's why the film's so unique in the kind of all these different biopics. It's a period of time.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, Mark and Will could have made, you know, like Walk the Line, like the Johnny Cash one, where it's, you know, from, you know, almost from cradle to grave, you know, and but they've taken a snapshot, like you said, and it's a far more interesting way of doing it. It's a different way of doing it, and because everybody knows the story after that point. Well, Smiths fans.
Absolutely. And were you ever much of a Smiths fan yourself?
No, I mean, I grew up 10 years after it. You know, so I was born in 1990. So like, when I was a teenager, you know, we listened to different music. Yeah. So I've come to him later in life, obviously, but now I'm obsessed with it. Absolutely obsessed with it. But I can imagine that being the soundtrack to and it was the soundtrack to Mark's growing up. Must have been amazing. A guy that spoke that well and that sort of succinctly.
And you were saying as well, like this, like Morrissey is just like got a global appeal. Everyone knows him. Everyone's got an opinion on him. How is it to kind of take on a role like that, where it's such a well-known person and someone that's kind of can be so vocal about his opinions? Did you ever feel there was a pressure, like, oh, I wonder what he might think or what the fans might think, or do you just go out there and just go, I'm just going to do my best?
It's the amazing thing, man, about making a film is that you're there, you know, for whatever the 30 days that we shot it over. None of those things exist because you're with the crew and the cast, and it's such a personal thing. And then it's so bizarre, and then you come to this, and suddenly everybody, it's for everybody, and everybody's got to watch it and have opinions about it, and you think it's weird making a film because you think none of you guys were there. Yeah, it's just but it happens to have been caught on camera, and rightly so, you know. But no, there was never really any pressure, to be honest, man. It was always just on the day there and then, you know, with the director or with the other actors. No.
Yeah, and you've obviously got a couple of films coming up. You've obviously just recently been cast in the Mary Queen of Scots movie. Like, do you feel like Scottish cinema is on the cusp of something? There's obviously talk of a big studio here.
Well, I mean, Christ, you know, it's got a lot of hints. You know, people keep wanting to make films up here, so we need to build a studio. You know, there's only so many chances that it gets. The film industry keeps saying, like, it obviously wants to make films here. And I think, you know, obviously we're way behind, and there's such an amount of creative talent up here. It's unbelievable, but they leave. You know, and I'm a hypocrite for that as well, because I live in London now, you know, but for different reasons I live in London. But we need one, man, for crying out loud. Yeah. There's so many brilliant stories up here, but I mean, look at the country around you, the backdrop that you get for free. You know, it's such an obvious place to make.
I think maybe with like Avengers coming up, people might go, right, finally we can make it, because I don't know what you like here. You would see all the trucks just dotted around, like hanging around at Holyrood. Like, yeah, you're right. We need a studio.
There's so many films shooting up here this year. There's loads of films shooting up here. Big films, small indie films. People keep trying. I don't know how many more hints we need.
Yeah.
But I know I can speak like that because I'm an actor. I obviously don't know the intricacies involved in putting together a film studio and getting the money together, obviously. But I mean, we need to find a way if we can.
And obviously you've got Dunkirk coming up this month as well. It must be kind of feel like a bit of a roller coaster just now, that gone from the days of a bunch of Scots going around in a van. Like, what was it like working with Christopher Nolan on like this epic movie, you know?
It was amazing, you know. I first and foremost, you know, I think like a lot of people, I'm a fan of his films, massive fan. You know, every time a film came out of his, you would run to see it. So that alone was amazing to experience, to watch the guy work, and he really is. He's there with his shirt sleeves rolled up. That guy, he's a true filmmaker. He's brilliant. He really is, and the whole experience was insane. I went from this to Dunkirk in the space of 2 weeks, I think it was. So it was from one end to the other.
Is it difficult to get yourself into that kind of mindset from going from, you know, this small movie that you made in 30 days with what feels probably like your pals to the sprawling out where you're going, oh, there's Kenneth Branagh, there's about 6,000, you know.
It is strange, it is bizarre, but you know, they weren't particularly starry actors in either projects. They were brilliant big actors in both, but nobody was particularly starry. You know, I think it's British filmmaking. You know, the British actors.
Do you ever have to pinch yourself thinking like, you know, kind of, it's almost like Local Boy done good, that here you are just like in these big movies, you know, opening and closing film festivals, and everyone was thinking like, how did this happen?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah, but to a certain extent, no, because, you know, why should the fact that I come from the borders or from Scotland, or certainly the borders, be any different to where anybody else, where Mark Rylance, where Kenneth Branagh, where Tom Hardy came from? You know, people don't say that about people who come from London, but they do about people who come from little villages in Ogden. It's. I mean, anything's possible.
It feels like you root for Scottish folk when you see them come good. You always go, "Oh, this is one of our guys we get right behind."
We've got that about us, but you know, to a certain extent, we need to drop that off, and because it's almost based in sort of self-pity and a preconception that we'll never amount to anything. Yeah. So we need to just forget that. We need to get over ourselves. We need to get over it and just think, well, anything's possible. Doesn't matter where you're from. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and like, what kind of will be kind of on the horizon for you next? Is there kind of films that you're interested in, or things that you're kind of signed up to do?
I mean, there's a couple of things coming up, and like you said, Mary Queen of Scots.
How does that feel? Another leading role?
Yeah, it's going to, and a different part again. It's going to be fun.
Can't keep the accent this time?
Nope. The accent's gone again in that one, and I've got a film coming out after, I think it'll be after New Year, where I played a wrestler from Norwich.
Okay.
So that's different again.
So how do you get into the mindset of kind of all these different movies? It seems like you can't pigeonhole you in any sort of role.
Well, I would love, I think it's been by design.
Yeah.
But some of it's just the luck of the draw. That's what's come my way, and you know, as you get, if you're lucky enough to keep going, obviously you can become more picky. Yeah. So I have become more picky. Well, been fortunate enough to. But I'd like to direct, is what I want to do. Yeah. You know, it's something I've been desperate to do for a long time.
So when you obviously work with great guys like Mark and Nolan, like, who do you kind of look at yourself and think, oh, I'd like to follow maybe in their steps, like they would be the kind of films I'd like to be doing? Or have you got an idea you think, oh, this is my vision?
I think I certainly do have a vision. You know, and have an idea of how, you know, I'd love things to look, or stories that I'd like to tell, you know. But there, you know, I work with a director on War and Peace who's young.
Perfect.
Who's very young. Well, not that young. He just looks really young. Tom Harper. And I just watched the way he worked. Yeah. And I just loved his bravery, which I think is what it takes. And that's, if you take it from the film, From England Is Mine, you know, it took that guy a long time in the film to get some bravery. And when you've got bravery, you know, anything's possible. And Tom Harper is the example of that for me. When I watched the way I watched him work, he was not scared of anything, that guy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. All the best for everything.
Yeah, man. Thanks very much.
Closing the film festival, it must have been a surreal experience.
Yeah, it was actually. I came up and then I got ready in my room, and then suddenly I was at a premiere, and I know it sounds really obvious, but it was really bizarre. I'd completely forgotten about how that can feel, and the sort of, and we sort of all walked out right before the film started, and the place is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful theatre. And I just looked up and I was like, this is wild, because I'm on stage at the moment every night. But last night felt like the biggest performance because you're being you in front of a lot of people. Yeah. Whereas when I'm acting, I'm not. So I'm cool. That's fine. But it was wonderful. And everyone was so kind. And it was just so much fun. I had so much fun.
Yeah, it must have been a surreal experience. Just like, it's not the usual kind of film festival kind of venue and stuff like that. To be in this old theatre, it really makes it feel like a prestigious event especially for a world premiere of your film.
Yeah, it really did, and it was beautiful, and it was really great. Like, there's so many people, who bought tickets and stuff, and so it felt really buzzy and exciting, and it's such an honour to close the festival.
Yeah. And obviously with your character of Linda Sterling, like an iconic feminist pop punk, artist, like there must come a pressure with that. What did you kind of learn from that experience of like deep diving into that? Like, was that a person you kind of knew of before, or what was it like to put yourself in that mindset?
Yeah, I knew of her before. I went to art school for 4 years, and so I studied and looked at her work when I was there. I was so happy that I could be all those things and get paid, because I don't know, I can relate to her and her work a lot, and I think she makes important work. And it was kind of wild when I realised I'd not played a sort of real life person before, because in my head, every character I've played feel completely real to me, like they have existed. And so I didn't approach it differently based on that. I did research that I always do every time I take on a job. But this one, was just a bit more specific, and there were certain things it couldn't be. Whereas, sometimes that's a more flexible thing. Yeah. But I just had so much fun.
Because you've obviously got experience of working in period pieces. Also, you did Downton Abbey. What's the difficulties and like the rewards in doing like a period piece, that you've got something that's here set in a period of time, and it's so easy to almost fall into maybe parody mode of these kind of Morrissey's Depressed and these kind of pop punk rockers? Like, what are the challenges when you kind of come into a role like that to make sure that you do it justice and do something that's genuine?
I think we give a lot of weight and credit to time and periods of time. Whereas actually, socially and economically, things are drastically different and change all the way, through all the periods of history. Being a woman right now is a hell of a lot better than way back when. But as a sweeping sort of statement, I do believe that to be human, to feel scared, trapped, lost, unseen, alone, I think that has always felt the same. I think that's where a lot of creative energy then can fly out of that, and is why making art for so many people, and I can relate to that so much, is essential to the ability to be able to exist in this world. If your mind if that's where your head is, it is like it is the only thing that is going to make sense of this world. I think that is timeless, and I think that is universal. And so I always just approach everything with how it feels to be alive, and what that is. And then, you put on flares, or you put on a corset, or you put on a spacesuit from the future, and then you play out what that is. But it always has to be based on the human experience. Yeah. And I think that is something that doesn't really change. So,
and obviously at the film festival, you had this beautiful Fantastic as well. So you've certainly owned this film festival.
Yeah.
And I was kind of curious that with obviously like Bella Brown and Linda are like these are really strong female characters. And there's so much talk nowadays of kind of some of the female characters are just the love interests, or just a token female character. Do you find it difficult to find these strong, amazing roles that you've showcased here at the festival, or are you kind of having to be picky and go, well, I'm not going to pick that role. I'm always just looking for these strong characters.
I think I always want complex. Sort of. I want to work really hard, and I want to be pushed by directors and writers. I'm, sort of challenge myself. But I think strong is sometimes. I think it's really tricky because a lot of the great roles for women are then these strong, brilliant, almost like, how the hell are you doing this, women? But that really frustrates me as well, because I want to play and look at characters who are flawed too. A lot of like male leads that you see, they like, look at Mad Men, for instance. Like in the first episode, you're shown so much about Donald Draper that would make you go, what's this guy? And yet you're allowed to love him. You're allowed to see someone's absolute flaws and their shortcomings, as well as seeing them fly and be the family man and be successful and a failure all at once. And those are the roles that really excite me. The idea of being able to play, a woman who, is a nightmare or makes bad decisions or, isn't perfect or doesn't, have the right thing to say. I was watching Paula on the BBC recently, and I loved that. It was just like sort of, this woman was sort of like infuriating. You're like, what are you doing? And yet like completely relatable in so many ways, which scare me a bit. But I found that really exciting. It's those roles that kind of really excite me.
Do you think like female writers are maybe the best solution to write these kind of complex female characters?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a trend at the moment to be like, no, we need a strong woman in it. We need a strong woman because that's like the thing. And it needs to be a rounded, it needs to be a fully like living, breathing person. And it can't just be the token strong woman rather than the token silent one that we used to have. And that still exists, obviously. But like, I think it has to be an equality of allowing someone to not be brilliant, but still be compelling to watch. Those stories are just as important. So I think that really excites me. They're hard to find, though.
Yeah. And you've got such a diverse filmography. Is that something you actively try and do? That just kind of go from project to project? 'Cause, like your two movies here can be more wildly different. I mean, is that something you're actively doing to kind of not be pigeonholed? Like with so many people with TV, they go, "Oh, that's that one person that was in that," and you've got no one can pin you down. Is that what you're looking for, perhaps?
Yeah, I think if I was put in any. I think boxes are really damaging. As an artist, they're really damaging. As a person, they're really damaging. It's like, are you gay? Are you straight? It's like sort of putting titles onto people. I even find Mr. and Mrs. I used my passport yesterday, and I was looking at it. It was like, this is so weird because I have boxes technically that are being ticked here, and I don't feel I live in that world. And I think art for me needs to kind of reflect that, and can be such a huge part of a conversation that is like changing the world. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And every time there's something as well about you're working on a job, and when you're on that and doing that world, it's the other things around it that seem then really fascinating. So I suppose sort of like diversity, working in a diverse way, it also just means you learn so much more. It's so exciting doing, last year I did a play, 3 films and a TV show, and working across those mediums, and then with such different people in different places at different speeds and on different budgets and things like that. It means that you can't become complacent and you can't get lazy, and I think those things can really disintegrate an artist, and like and staying aware and awake and you know of what's going on. So yeah, I think that's.
And what kind of art is inspiring you at the moment, where you're maybe watching a certain director or a talent or a play that you thought, this is like truly inspiring, this is what I'd love to be doing, or inspiring your creative talents?
Yeah, well, Ivo van Hove is an amazing director, and his work, Kings of War I saw, and that was amazing. I came down, actually, I was filming this, I was filming England Is Mine, and we were on night shoots, and we wrapped at around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got the train down immediately to go and see the matinee of Kings of War. And
are you in there in your like pop punk outfit and stuff?
Hours and hours and hours and hours of theatre, in one go, and Roman tragedies and things like that. But just that way of working, that way of theatre, that has nothing about the art form, which is killing it, was so exciting, and that made me so happy. And I will travel to see that stuff, but I wish that it wasn't something that you had to travel to see. Mm-hmm. I wish there was more work like that.
Do you think that's the problem sometimes with a lot of this theatre, is it's so London based, and that the rest of the country is not seeing it? Like, you've got to travel hours and hours on a train just to see it. Do you think that's causing a kind of cultural naivety in the country, like it all being based in one location?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, there used to be so much more like regional theatre, and theatre used to tour a lot more, which is really essential, I think, for it to be seen. But things like, we actually, I don't know if I can say. I'll say it anyway. Hamlet was filmed, so the BBC, but instead of putting it out into cinemas, but people still have to pay to go and watch it, it's going to be on TV, so anyone can access it. So that's really exciting. But yeah, I get music is a huge influence for me, which is why doing a film about music was so fucking cool. And then, but poetry, writing, reading is my joy, and I love that. I love sort of, you can just sit anywhere and, open a whole world and live in that. And I find, I do. I go to poetry. I go to poetry nights. I read poetry out loud that I've written, and but I love being. This is really loud.
We'll take that as a sign to wrap up that. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
So how are you? How was last night?
Good, yeah, it was brilliant, yeah. I had a really fun time.
It must have been a surreal experience to see like a film that you starred in, like have its like global premiere in a big theatre, closing a festival. It's not just your usual Cineworld on a Friday.
No, I'd not seen the film either until last night. So yeah, it was great.
What was that like as an experience to see it for the first time complete in that kind of environment?
It was extremely exciting, and the theatre was packed, and there were 3 levels of people, and there was a really good energy in there. It was very exciting.
Everything just seemed to land as well. Every joke, every beat. The audience, I think, was right there.
They were, and Mark was saying that there were things that people were laughing at that he didn't even realise would be funny until you get it. That's the great thing when you put it in front of an audience, like with a piece of theatre. When you put it in front of the audience and they react to it and they respond, you figure out beats that you didn't even realise would have been there. It did feel quite theatrical actually last night. It felt very grand, and everybody was there, and there was just this energy.
On the stage and seeing all these praying eyes,
exactly.
the suits, and
it was mad.
And how did you come to be involved in this movie?
I just, like most roles, just kind of was put up for it by my agent, and went in and met Shaheen and Mark. I think I only met them the once, and then I was delighted when I got the part.
So then when you get the part, like, what do you do after that? How do you start to build up to becoming Johnny Marr? It's like, it's not like you've got that blank slate, you've got so much to kind of aim towards. How do you do that?
But I think that was the exciting thing, is that there's so much about him that I could research and find interviews of him when he was, around that age, and there's loads of interviews from the 80s of him and Morrissey together talking and on chat shows and that kind of thing, and just tapping into that energy that he had. And he was a charming guy and funny, and there's this kind of like
language that he and Morrissey speak when they're in interviews together, and they kind of try and make each other laugh and that kind of thing. So I wanted to be able to play that, just that they had that relationship of trust and all that kind of thing.
And how do you get a lot of pressure with that? Because when I was speaking with Mark, he was like, Morrissey, the Smiths just have a global appeal. Everyone's got an opinion on them, likes them. Do you kind of go into that just trying to blank it all out, or just thinking like, oh, I've got to do something that does justice to
Well, that's exactly it. You've got the responsibility, but I think the script was so well written that it didn't feel like a daunting task. It felt like one that we would absolutely pull off, and I think that we have.
And did you get a chance to meet Johnny Marr, or did you get to see him perform live?
No, I haven't yet. Maybe one day. I think he's very much aware of the film, and I think Mark bumped into him a couple of days ago, and he was saying that he was very honoured and flattered to be in the film, and hopes that it does well. But yeah, he seems like a great guy, and he's very talented and the coolest guy. So yeah,
I saw him like performing 2 weeks ago, like really? With Hans Zimmer. He was on stage with that, doing like the Inception stuff together, and then it was like, it was just like last night I was thinking like, 2 weeks ago I was watching him on stage, now I'm watching an actor playing him on stage. It was quite a surreal experience.
Yeah, I bet.
And kind of for yourself, like, what kind of roles are you kind of eyeing in future? Obviously, this is, like Mark was saying, this is going to go global. The deals have been done in America. Your face is going to be out there. Like, what kind of roles are now going to be appealing to you, and how are you going to handle this sort of exposure?
I'm not sure, really. You never really know how it'll come across. I'm very proud of the part that I played in it, and I think it was some really nice scenes. But you never know what it'll lead to. It's nice to play real characters like that, because, as I say, there's so much that you can research into. But and I also like playing things set in a different time. I think it brings like a new energy to it. So who knows?
Yeah. What was it like to kind of deep dive back into the past, kind of 80s, 70s Manchester, that kind of era of time? Was there something that you kind of learned from that research?
Well, I'd done a job the year before that was set in 1974 in South London, but we filmed it all in Manchester. So it was kind of nice to be back in that world. But yeah, the music around that time was amazing, and I think that was one thing that I did a lot of, was listen to the stuff that was coming out at that time to kind of fit into that era. Listened to lots of the Smiths' music, was reading loads of stuff about him. I think Johnny's autobiography came out something like a week after we finished.
Oh, that was so big.
It's a shame. But
did you get a chance to read it after?
Well, I'm going to read it now. Now that this has all been brought back up again, I think I'll give it a read.
Do you think it'll be one of those ones that you'll read it and think, oh,
why didn't
maybe
I
missed
do that?
that spot, or oh, I wish I had that nugget, or thinking, oh, my kind of research and my ideas were spot on.
I think, yeah, I did do lots of research on it, so I think the way I played it was how I would have done it anyway. But yeah, I think I will give it a
And so how does that compare, like, when you're doing a role like this where you've got all this, like, data, information, books, compared to, like, a role where you've got a blank slate? How does it differ for you in that kind of research and the process to bring in a character to life?
It's just a different discipline to do it. When you do have a blank slate, you can kind of create a backstory, and in one way that's really freeing, because you can... It's up to you, really, or you and the director. You talk about why you think this person's making these choices because of maybe something they've done in the past, or what their upbringing was, or whatever. But equally, when you're playing someone, a real character, it's all there for you. So it's almost easier, because you question, why would he make this joke, or that kind of thing. It's all there, and you know the reasons why.
Absolutely. And then kind of like, what projects are you kind of going to be working on now or in the future? Have you got things lined up there exciting?
Yeah, so I'm doing some time on a movie in Serbia at the end of this month. Flying out there. It's a new Daniel Alfredson movie. Wow. So he's making a new trilogy of Swedish novels and
that would be incredible.
Books. So yeah, I'm going out there to do that. But yeah, who knows? The summer's a funny time. Yeah.
And how do you kind of, with a movie like that, kind of set in Serbia, kind of foreign language, would that involve kind of like an English-speaking role?
I think all the films will be English, in English. So they're just shooting in that location for...
It sounds like so diverse from kind of what you've just done. Is that something that you do with like your roles, is look for something diverse, interesting, or do you have a certain thing that these are the roles I'm really passionate about?
Well, a bit of both. I think it's always fun to do something kind of out there and out of the blue, and you know, if someone's going to pay you to go to Serbia and make a film, then that's like groovy. So
is it moments like this where you just pinch yourself, thinking like,
exactly.
you know, here you are, like you're watching your film unveiled in a festival. Here you've got, you know, off to Serbia. Yeah. Is this what it was all kind of like your big aim in life?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. I've only been in the game about 4 years or so. So I did a play when I was 18 and then moved to London and started working. And my brother and my sister-in-law were there last night at the film as well, which is really nice. I think it was kind of surreal for them as well to see, you know, their little brother on the screen and on the red carpet. Yeah,
there'll be no red carpet treatment for you at home still.
No,
It'll be the normal.
Absolutely not. No.
So what kind of what movies and like music? What like inspired you? That you were saying you've only been in it a short time. Like what kind of pushed you down this kind of road? Was it like movies, or was it always something you were passionate about at school?
Yeah, I was always very passionate about it. But my dad was a big fan of films. Well, he still is. So we'd watch films a lot, and it was just always. I would watch them in a different way, and it's weird when you start making films or TV, and then watch stuff now. You see it in a different way. So you see it for like continuity, or you think, oh, how would they have shot this thing? Yeah. My mum was like, can you shut up? I'm trying to watch it. And I'm like, yeah, but I wonder how they, you know, how many scenes this would have taken. How long would this scene be? Or they must be freezing or whatever in that water. And she's just like, you do start to see it in a different way, which is an exciting thing.
And what films have you enjoyed recently where you've been putting them under the microscope?
What films? I can't. My mind has absolutely gone blank, obviously. But theatre is something that I see a lot of. I live in London and try and see as much theatre as I can.
Any good plays recently that you...
Well, I saw one called Anatomy of Suicide last week at the Royal Court, and it was one of the most extraordinary pieces of art I've ever seen in my life. It's about these 3 generations of women, one set in the 70s, one in the 90s, and one in like 2030. And all 3 scenes are happening simultaneously of these women, and it was just so well written and so well done, and it was just extraordinary. And that's the kind of thing that really excites me.
Would you want to maybe go back now that you've kind of done film? Is still theatre perhaps your first love, something you maybe want to go back to?
Well, I think it's something that the two aren't mutually exclusive at all, so I'd love to do more theatre stuff. And when I go and see things like that, I just think this is the reason why we do it.
Absolutely.
Because it's so exciting and visceral and ephemeral, especially in the Royal Court, because they're only there for about a month or so. It's always, usually new writing. So yeah, something there would be amazing.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your interview today. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything that's to come.
Much. Cheers.
Perfect.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.